Hello, and welcome to Creativity with Don Allen III Live. It's a pleasure to have you here. Today, in YouTube and on Instagram, we're streaming the process of rigging in the new version of Cinema 4D. We're talking about version R25. And so we'll be rigging today a mushroom that we modeled in VR yesterday, and we'll be taking a frog as well and rigging these two things. What I'm going to be using this for is for a LiDAR-based AR experience, where as you walk through an environment, an AI that's in the program is going to detect the surfaces, semantic understanding. So we're thinking like it will know what a ground is, it will know what a chair is, it will know what a table is, it will know what a wall is. And then based on that information, I can choose to have certain types of geometry render there. So in this case, I'm just doing my first, my test one, test number one, which is I just wanted this dancing mushroom and a frog attached to that mushroom as it kind of dances along. And then we're going to have that and try to bring that into like a LiDAR based AR experience. That's the plan. Haven't done much LiDAR custom stuff yet, so this will be kind of fun to experiment with. And right now we're inside of the program Cinema 4D version R25. If you don't recognize the user interface, they've totally changed it. Everything has a new looking button, and yes, it's a whole new experience. So we are streaming live to YouTube right now, so you're welcome to join us over there. And let's get right on into it. I'm going to start off by grabbing the frog and the mushroom. I'm going to copy them and make a new scene with just those components. And it looks like they put them off center somewhere. Where are we? Where's the center of the world? Okay, center is off over there. And I like to bring in, whenever I'm designing for a LiDAR experience, I want to bring in a reference human so I know the scale of my objects. So I just brought in a reference human that's about 180 centimeters tall. I think that's around 6 feet. And it looks like our 6-foot human is super tiny in comparison to our scene. Right now, this mushroom and frog is the size of like a large building. So I'm going to take both of those assets and push them together inside of a null object. That way we can grab that null and scale it uniformly so that the frog asset is not as large as that. And I can also push my human back in front of it. So I always like to recommend this when you're designing for AR experiences. You want to know what the true world scale is. Plus, is the weird question. Rude Drew says, weird question, but is it possible to replicate lenticular image patterns in AR? Let me double check. I don't know if I know what that word means off the top of my head. Let me look it up. Lenticular AR patterns, images. Lenticular. Oh yeah. If it looks like this, yeah, we can definitely make halftone shaders in AR. Yeah, if this is what lenticular means, you can do this kind of stuff in AR for sure. Yeah, in this case, you have two different textures on either side of a face, and then two images, and then based off of the angle that the person's viewing, they'll either see one or two of those images. Yeah, that should be doable in AR today. Good question. We're taking live questions. If you have a question, feel free to ask. It is a safe space for that. So I'm going to grab my mushroom and frog and scale them down even further. I'm going to probably have the objects about this size. I think this feels like a comfortable size because what I'm imagining is, this character, is you holding a smartphone for now, looking around your environment. And so I want this to be about that large. It's like a, kind of larger than life frog, the larger than life mushroom. Great. Now I'm also going to turn on my line displays. So up at the top here, there should be a display. I'm going to see my lines so we can actually see the topology of things. Pretty clean topology on both of these assets, or our mushroom and our frog. I'm going to spend a little bit of time orienting them to be together. So I intentionally kept the frog in the world center so that it'll be easier for me to rig. Basically be able to rig half the frog, and then we'll mirror that to the other part of the frog. The easiest thing to render here is going to be the mushroom. So I want the mushroom to be able to kind of dance and shake side to side. I think will look kind of cool. So we'll start off with the first asset. We'll start off with the easier of the two assets. I'm going to start rigging the mushroom. For this, I'm going to hide the human because we don't need the reference human anymore. And I'm going to switch to an orthographic view. An orthographic view like this one here allows you to look at the object that you want to rig and model without seeing any misleading angles. Everything that you see inside of a view like this is going to be a flat projection. And so from the flat projection size, I'm going to make sure I'm going to grab the mushroom. I'm going to rename this. We're going to call it mushroom. And we're going to jump into the rigging context. Oh, wow, they changed that. I don't see a rigging button up here anymore. So this is the new version of Cinema 4D. What would they call that instead? Modeling, sculpting, UV edit, paint, grooming, track, script, and nodes. Where's rigging? Rigging is what I would like to see. Maybe under character. Okay, well, I guess all I was really going to use is these character tools. So maybe we don't need to have the whole layout be based in rigging. Oh, it's in character now. I don't see rigging context. Manager, constraints. Hello, welcome. Today we're working on rigging inside of Cinema 4D for another AR experience cross-platform. Okay, I guess I don't see it for now, so I'm just going to use my normal tools, which would be the joint tool. And I want to create a joint chain throughout the mushroom. So I'm going to start off holding control and clicking. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think 5 bones. I think 5 bones should be enough for the for this. Maybe I'll move this one up a little bit higher. There we go. So we have 5 bones inside of the column. And what I like to do is switch my camera view to a top-down view as well as a side view. And that way we can orient the bones of the system into the correct angles. So now there is bones inside there. And we can take these bones and we can do all sorts of things like rotate them. Now when we rotate the bone, it should move the mushroom, but you see that it's not doing that, right? So it's kind of locked off. So what we want to do for rigging is we want to use binding. So I'm going to grab all of my bones in order. So I grabbed it holding shift and then grab the last bone. So first to last, the order does matter. Otherwise, it's not going to rig properly. And then once you have that order, we then hold control and grab the bit of geometry. Oops, I missed it. Let's hold shift, grab all the bones, and then hold control, select the geometry that you would like those bones to bind to. And then finally, we go to character and we go to the option called bind, B-I-N-D, bind. So I click on that. Now our bones will actually move the mushroom. Look at that. So now if the bones move, look at that. How cool is that? So now we have the ability to animate the mushroom because it has bones. Now if you see, this is what I like to do is like my bend test, if you will. And what I'm doing is I'm just kind of seeing what are the limitations of my modeling. You know, sometimes you might need more subdivisions. Like for example, if you plan on animating a character that needs to spin, you'll probably need to add a lot more horizontal and a lot more vertical lines for it to twist on. But I don't really plan on doing much twisting motion with the mushroom character. So this should be fine. The other thing I want to do and change is set up an inverse kinematic system. IK is the way of controlling the end bone and having that influence the position of all the other bones. Because right now, if I went and grabbed the last bone in our system and try to move it, see how it only moves the bone? It doesn't actually move. It doesn't actually move the system itself. So the way that we can do that is same idea. We grab our first and our last bone in our system, and under the bone system, we go to character and set that to inverse kinematics or create IK chain. The IK stands for inverse kinematics. So when I clicked on that, it gives you this new thing called a joint goal. And now if we move this, it's going to bend the entire system in accordance with the bone direction. So we're able to just move one parameter and it controls all of the motion of our system, which is pretty cool. Now, one thing you might notice is that the bend direction is kind of set up for us. And maybe you don't want your system to bend this direction. if you want to have the your character or your model or whatever you're doing, if you want to have it bend a certain direction, you'll have to give it a bone vector. So you have to tell it beforehand what way you want it to bend. So in this case, if I go to my inverse kinematics, it has an IK solver. You can switch between FK and IK. They have a strength. They have a preferred rotation. You can move that around and see what happens. Looks like it's still moving the same way. We have a twist. The twist lets you kind of play around with the direction that it's going to bend. Right now, it's automatically guessing which direction it should bend, but I could set it to z-axis, y-axis, x-axis, negative z, positive y, positive x, all sorts of different ways. So you can really rig these characters however you see fit. They're friendly. So if I want to, rig maybe forward and back, and we have our twist vector. So if I wanted to rotate that at 90 degrees there, and then we could move it that direction. So we have the first bit rigged. We have this thing. And what I want to do is create some, like a little bit of a dance maybe, or like maybe a circular motion, or maybe just a little rocking left and right. Bubbles, there you go. Think about it. Yeah, something like maybe that. Yeah, maybe we'll just do some little motion like that for the mushroom on the top. So I'm going to grab that pole vector and turn on auto key, which is that A that looks like a recording button, and you'll see a red rectangle forms around your viewport. This is saying that any parameter that you touch right now in your attributes is going to be keyframed automatically. A keyframe is a snapshot of a value in time. So if right now I really just care about the position of that pole vector at frame 0 in time. And then let's go to maybe frame 14 in time and change the angle there. And you see that automatically sets a keyframe. That means when we hit the play button, it's automatically going to play between those two values. It interpolates between the two values on your keyframe. And then I'm going to have it maybe come back up. Go back around this way. And then we'll have it maybe rock over there. Okay, so now we have a little bit of an animation. And then let's have it loop back around. So I'm going to copy that keyframe and end it at the same spot. So now it does this, did that. So we just get a nice little looping animation here. I'm going to separate these keyframes so that they have a little bit more space between them. But now we have a mushroom that kind of dances around. It seems like the little extreme for me in terms of how much it's moving. So I'm going to go to each pole vector and just kind of lower the amount of movement that's happening. So maybe I'll go here and then just bring this back a little bit on the Y, up on the X. I wanted to have just a little bit of movement, nothing too much. Cool. Even that seems like it has a bit too much bend for me, so I'm going to play with the strength of the IK tag, so now it kind of stays a little bit more rigid. If you really reduce it, it's getting this very light influence. So it's really cool to play with these parameters as they will dramatically change the way your animation is interpreted. So like that's like turning off the goal. So you can offset the goal in any dimension as well. And the goal is like a loose value, so we can move the goal however we see fit. So now you can see how it gets a little bit more of a jiggle to the mushroom as it moves around with the frog that's going to be attached to it shortly. Pretty sweet stuff, right? Okay, so cool. We got a mushroom animation. I'm happy with that. It looks like the mushroom's kind of doing the worm, and I'm totally fine with that. You can also add another pole vector. So every pole vector lets you twist it in a different direction. So I just added a second pole, and I'll hit pause. With a second pole, we can essentially give it like an angle that we want it to bend in. But actually, I'm going to undo that. Kind of liked what I had before. Cool. So now we got this kind of bouncing motion for the, the first bit. Great. I'm also going to go ahead and turn off my lines. We don't really need them at the moment. Cool. All right, now let's get this frog rigged. That's going to be the more advanced one. So I'm just going to save my work and save this into my frog folder and call this rigging objects. Okay, so the frog character is going to be different. I'm not going to make a full rig where we spend a tremendous amount of time making this work, but rather I'm going to spend just a little bit of time getting it to kind of work. So same idea, we want to jump to that front and side and back perspectives. In this case, I'm going to go to a top-down view of the frog. I'm going to also take the frog and reset its orientation into the scene. So I think, where's it? Enable axis. Where's the reset PSR value? I don't see it anymore. They might have moved it, but I'll just move it manually myself here. Okay, so we have a frog pretty much centered in our scene. And same idea, I'm going to grab the frog, I'm going to rename this layer, call this one frog. With the frog selected, we're going to go to character and go to the joint tool. And we're going to create some joints for the frog. So I want a lot of the frog's mass to be controlled by its hips. Okay, so notice the geometry shrinking from the top after the bone binding. Notice the geometry shrinking from the top of the bone binding. Shrinking. Let me see what you're talking about. You see the bone is shrinking. I don't see it on my end. Seems to be working fine on my end. I don't see too much of an issue with that bone there. I'm going to continue animating frog, or sorry, rigging the frog. So we're on the top view of the frog now. I'm going to go to frame 0 and make sure our frog is selected, and we have our joint tool selected for character joint tool. And what we're going to do is start off with the hips. So I'm going to hit the control button and set a value for the hips. And then I'll make a little bit of, we'll do some bones for the spine. So I'm holding control and clicking around spine. And then right here, we'll make this maybe the head control. Okay. So I like to start off with like the central parts. It always says it gets shorter. I mean, I don't see a problem with that. So I'm okay with having a kind of janky rig. Mostly because this rig is not for anything too serious. I didn't see a problem with the rig at this moment, but if there is a problem, we can maybe adjust it depending on how much it needs to be fixed. Okay, so we just placed a bone on the center of the frog's spine, and the order of the bone is important. So we start off with the hips, and then we go to like the lower lumbar, and then we have like the back of the ribs, and then it looks like a neck, and then the tip of the neck. So where I want to connect the legs would be at the hip level. So grabbing the root, we're going to connect some more bones just for the legs of the frog. So we're going to grab our joint tool, going to character joint tool, starting off from our frog hip and holding control. And then I'm going to connect it to the kneecap here. And then we'll connect to this little leg. And then we'll do one here in the foot. Cool. And you see how these are connected to the right bone. So that if we were going to move the hip bone, you see how it's moving the leg too, because they are in the same hierarchy. Whereas I don't want the head to move when we move the hips. So that looks like it's going to work. So yeah, that's your left foot. I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to grab a different bone in the spine, something right around here. And with that bone selected, we'll go back to our character joint tool. And I'm going to create a little button holding control, clicking our, shoulder and that. Great. So just kind of creating that bone system. Axia says, you were the first person I've heard about crypto art from. Thank you for sharing and teaching innovative things. Oh, wow. Yay. I'm happy to hear that. And thanks for being here and supporting the journey. I want to keep this content free and accessible so that more people can experience that moment of getting into 3D art, 2D art, futurism. So thank you for being here and helping support it. Right now, we're actually live streaming to YouTube so that this can be even more accessible. The YouTube one has a better microphone situation. I actually have a keylogger, so you can see what keys I'm pressing on the screen will pop up. Yeah, it's it's full screen, recording in really high quality. So if you want to join on YouTube, I would love it. So that is meshed nicely. Yep. So great, we got some legs for the frog. What I like to recommend is you want to give every bone in a rig system a unique name. Otherwise, some rigging programs like Unreal get confused if the bones don't have unique names. So the fastest way to do that in Cinema 4D is to double click the first text thing. And I just put like a number. So I'm going to call that 1. I'm going to call this one, I'm going to call this 2, and this one 3, and 4, 5, 6. And then I'll call this one 7, 8, 9, 10. Oops. 10 is a 1, 0. 12. So I like to try to give a unique name to every bone in a system because it avoids problems across platforms. If you want to be even better than that, you should give unique names that make more sense to you. Because like I'm going to look at that bone named 15 and not know what bone that is. So like if I really wanted to help out the future version of me that's going to be working on this in a different program, you'd want to spend that extra time to name it something useful. So maybe calling it like L for left underscore hip. That will help you see that later. But I just want to rig this very quickly. So and I'm also not doing a very complicated animation on it. So I'm not too concerned about the rigging naming. And I'm also not sending this to anybody. So it's like personal projects don't need to go with the naming conventions. But if this was like a client project that I'm going to have to be doing a lot of iterations on, a lot of revision cycles, oh, you best be believing that I'll be naming the heck out of the hierarchy, so I don't have to spend time here. Okay, so look at this. We got our legs here. We got left leg is really bone 2 through 6 is the left leg, and then bone 11 through 14 is the right arm, or the guess it just depends what side you're looking at it. Well, in Cinema 4D, they have a mirror tool. So instead of having to manually place those bones again, you can actually just select all the bones that you want, hit the mirror button, and then they'll just be flipped onto the other side. And you can even do mirroring of name conventions. You can have like every time the word L was used, replace it with an R. So it's a very quick way to automatically rig and name the other half. So that's why I still encourage people to rig things as symmetrically as possible so that when you get to the rigging phase, you can use mirroring tools. So I'm going to grab bones 11 through 14, and then I'm going to click on character mirror tool. And then if we just click on mirror, it mirrors it onto the other side. And in this case, it gave it the same name, but if you spend more time, you can give it better names. So I'm just going to add another 1 to all of these existing ones. Really bad naming conventions. Don't follow how I'm naming stuff here. It's not helpful. Follow just the principle of what I'm doing if you're going to rig your own characters. Okay, so now I'm going to grab the legs, bones 3 through 6. Same idea. I'm going to click on the mirror tool, go to symmetry, and where is it? All right, I'll go to mirror tool, mirror, there it is, and then click on mirror. Poof, now I got the other leg done. And same idea, we need to give those bones a unique name. So I'm just going to add some more characters. 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 5, 2, 3, 6, 2, 2, 3, 6, and 2, 3, 7. Cool. So now pretty much everything in our system has a bone, and the angles look good from this angle. But how do you mirror in Blender? I'm actually not sure. I don't really use Blender. But let me see. I'll find out for you. What is the mirror tool in Blender in rigging? The mirror tool mirrors the selection across, let me see. How do I mirror my rig in Cinema 4D / Blender? Cinema 4D, let me take off Cinema 4D. They might just call it something different. Oh, they call it mirror armature. Easy rigging in Blender, mirror armature technique. That's what you'll want to Google. There's a YouTube tutorial on it. You just double check. Oh yeah, they totally have it. Yeah, so yeah, that's the thing. Almost everything I show you in Cinema 4D like these days, you can do it in Blender for free. You don't have to pay anything
Now
to get into rigging. I would have been using, I get asked like, why aren't you using Blender? Stop using Cinema 4D, it's too expensive. And I totally understand the pain and the sentiment. I do really wish I was using Blender. The reason why I will continue to not use it is because my happy, comfortable zone with 3D is Cinema 4D. And when I first started learning 3D, it wasn't, Blender wasn't where it is at today. It's a really awesome program today that I honestly, if I was starting over today and I had to start learning 3D, I would start off with Blender because it is better. Uh, it's just that at the time, back when I started learning 3D in 2015, Blender was not as cool as it is now. It wasn't ready. It wasn't, honestly, in my opinion, it wasn't ready until version 2.8, which is recent. That was when it was like, oh, this is production ready. And I know you could do production work before version 2.8. I know people have, but now it's like you really can't. It's not a joke. So that's why I'm not using Blender. But if I was going to start over today, I would highly recommend you use it instead of Cinema 4D because it's free and it's really powerful. So, you know, that what else do you really need from a 3D program other than being free and powerful? So, um, but yeah, the tech. So basically, what I'm suggesting is if you're watching tutorials here on my YouTube channel, or if you're watching this in post, or if you're here with us live, you can actually take the principles of what I'm doing, and they will translate quite nicely into other 3D programs. The stuff I'm doing right now will work in Maya, 3ds Max, Blender, and even Houdini. So the principles are very similar across the 3D applications. I like to think of it as learning a new accent to a language. Instead of learning a new language, when you're learning like 3D terminology is kind of it's like matured quite a bit in like the last 25 years. So a lot of the 3D tools out there have a lot of the same terminology for the same kind of tasks, and that's all you really need nowadays. All right, so what I'm doing right now as I'm just talking is I'm moving and aligning my bones into each of the geometry bits. I'm trying to make sure that the bones are mostly inside of those areas, but they don't have to be perfectly in there. They just need to be close because if they're close enough, what will happen is the auto rigging will be a lot smoother. And if they're not close enough, the auto rigging will be a nightmare. So um, even when modeling characters, you want to try to keep joints away from each other. So, for example, I didn't rig this character. I didn't model this character. I'm going to be painting it later, but you see how like the leg has a lot of space. Uh, it's got a lot of space between the leg here. This will be a lot easier to rig than actually. This is just a really friendly model for rigging in general, but what you wouldn't want to do is have the arms and legs like right next to each other, like where they're squished together, because then the rigging software gets confused and it doesn't know that that leg has two parts. It will treat it like one part when giving it bones. Okay, so now we're at a state where we have bones pretty much all inside the body, and they are all given their own unique name. Those are my two prerequisites for rigging for AR, and we have met them. So let's save our work. And now what we're going to do is we're going to bind all of these bones to we're going to bind these bones to the frog, just like we did down here. So since we binded these bones, now when I move one of these bones of the mushroom, you see how everything moves along with it, right? It's really fun. And we'll be able to essentially have that same effect now once we bind our frog to that rig there. Very basic rig. Oh, we got a question. I want to create and animate Dr. Octopus back pliers, but for now I have only a 3D object, no rigging, no animation. Where do you start? Great question. I would start off with try rigging one arm of Dr. Octopus. Yeah, let me flip the camera and explain this one to you real quick. So with your character, first off, I love the idea of rigging and creating the Dr. Octopus arms. Dang it, I wish I thought of that first because I really wish I could do that now. But I'll resist. I'll wait for you to do yours. But so essentially, what I would start off with is rigging just one arm, and make sure that there's enough segments inside of the arm so that it could bend comfortably. If there's not a lot of segments, meaning like let's say if this was a distance of one arm segment and you only had one cut in the middle, it could only really bend at 90 degrees if you give it one slice. But if you gave it many slices in your rig, you'd be able to bend the arm much more smoothly. So since those arms are very bendy, I would say give it a lot more horizontal slices along the axis versus the other way. Second, you want to, so yeah, I'll start off with creating one arm and locking it into a T pose, or in this case just a flat pose. You're going to place your bones in that arm in using Blender. You're going to place your bones throughout that arm, and then you're going to select all the bones and then click on bind to geometry. And as long as their bones are evenly spaced out in that same volume, you'll be able to create a bend. And then you'll want to grab the first and the last bone and change them to inverse kinematics. So I would say look up a tutorial for you to look up on Blender would be IK rigging arm, IK rigging arm Blender. Look up that exact tutorial, and that will be your solution. And then you'll animate your inverse kinematic arm. You'll bake that animation down, and then you can bring that baked GLTF file or FBX file into Lens Studio, and then or Spark AR, and then you'll have a rigged their octopus. But that's a great filter, and I really want to do that now. I wish I came up with that idea first. But oh, you said we can collab on this? Ooh, I just missed your AR prereqs. AR for AR. Oh yeah, my prerequisites for AR. No worries. I'm actually live streaming this to YouTube right now, so you can watch this after the fact. But I'll repeat the prerequisites for rigging an AR. The first one is that I give every bone a unique name. If you don't do this, you're gonna have a sad time. So I make sure. So in my case, this is me lazily naming. I just chose random numbers, and I made sure I didn't repeat the numbers. This is lazy, but this is better than giving it all. If these are all called the same name, the software that you would maybe bring this into later won't know the difference, and it'll get your bones hierarchy all messed up, and they don't work. So I'd recommend you start off with that. That's first one. The second one is make sure that your character, when you're modeling it, is ideally symmetrical, because then it's just a little bit easier and faster to rig. That's the second one. And yeah, those are the only real rigging prerequisites. There's more, but those are the friendliest ones to discuss here. Okay, so now we're gonna bind all these bones to the frog. So I'm gonna hold shift and grab all of the bones in order from top to bottom. So now you can see every bone is highlighted in orange here. And then I'm gonna hold shift or control and grab the geometry. So now you can see that the frog is now outlined in orange. And now we go to character and choose the bind option. And if you're in Cinema 4D, they might use a different name in Blender, but it's again the same principle. It might be bind, it might be form, it might be connect or control rig. There's different words for it. So I'm gonna click on bind. Takes a few seconds to think, and you see that it creates a binding tag. And now every bone in the body should be rigged to the frog. So now if I move a leg, look at that, it's going to actually rotate properly. How cool is that? It's always really fun when you first see your rig come to life, because all of a sudden what was once a static piece of geometry suddenly becomes a character, a prop. It becomes an environment. It becomes something that you can tell a story with. And so you start to, at least for me, I start to get all the ideas of what can be created when I start seeing that it's like a puppet now. Now you can start animating, I can have it tell a story. So I can grab this arm here and be like, hello, welcome. I'm the frog that sits here on the mushroom. I am just recently rigged. So there's lots of problems with my joints, but it's a pleasure to have you here. Welcome to Rigging 101. Cool. So for some reason, in the new version of Cinema 4D, they took away the rigging context, and I actually liked the rigging context, so I'm going to switch it back to my old layout to see what do they call that now. Okay, so that there's rigging. So if you switch it to rigging context and turn on wireframe, oh, my wireframes are gray. I don't like that. I'm going to switch it to make it like Tron or something, like a neon blue or a neon green. That's my preference for the guides. I don't know. I just like the way it looks. So it feels like I'm in the Matrix or something. I'm going to switch it. So I'm going to go to Edit, Preferences, and then I'm going to choose my preferences of my scheme colors, editor colors, and then there should be one in here called Edges and Guides. Okay, there's edges. No, shaded wire. That's it. I'm going to change my shaded wire to that neon green so I feel like I'm editing in the Matrix. Personal preference, you do not have to do this, but for me, it's fun. Just adds a little bit more fun. I try to choose a color that I don't really use too much in rendering. Otherwise, that will get confusing when you're selecting stuff. Okay, so what you see now is the frog arm. You see how it's pink like this? That pink is called a weight influence. Weight painting is the process of giving each polygon on a model information that says how much a bone should be able to move it. So you see how right now this whole shoulder and the back of the eye is being, it all has that purple color. That's why when I move that bone, it's going to move anything that shares that color value with it. So weight painting is awesome. And it's nice that it can be done automatically, like what you're seeing here was the auto weighting, but it's not perfect. So seeing like this, but like, for example, I want to make it sure that when I move a shoulder, it's not moving the eyeball like this. So the way that you would fix something like this is a process called weight painting. The weight paintbrush looks like this. It's called the weight tool. You click on it, and it looks like a regular paintbrush. But instead of painting color or texture information, this is painting influence. It is if something has a color, it's influenced by the bone that has that value. And you can hold Alt, so you can hold Control to erase. So I'm going to erase any influence out here because I don't want the shoulder to influence the location of any other part other than the arm. So I'm just kind of softly going in here erasing. And now if we were to rotate the arm, see this? And now it only moves the parts that were purple. But you can still see little problem areas. So like the eyeball is still shooting out. These are polygons that I couldn't see when I was painting. So there's a fix for that. If you go to your weight paint tool, they have an option that's turned off by default in Cinema 4D called visible only. If you turn this off, it will now paint through the model, even if you can't see it. So I knew that there was something in the eye here that I don't want it to be influenced by, but by turning off visible only, we're now able to erase stuff that we can't see. And then again, you always want to test it. Yeah, see, that's much better. Now the arm moves and nothing else. Next problem I'm seeing is this. You see how it's like a sharp contrast? It's a black pixel and then it goes to a colored pixel. So you only want a sharp like contrast when it needs to be a 90-degree turn. But when you want something like an organic shoulder or an organic joint between two, flesh bodies, they should have a more gradient, a more gradual transition. So I switched to my weight brush. I changed it from absolute. I changed it to smoothing. And now whatever you paint gets smooth. It turns into a gradient. You see how it's painting a gradient now? This is a lot more natural way for joints to bend with an organic structure. But if I was rigging a robot or a mech or some kind of mechanical part, I would probably keep that at the black and white value because that makes sense there. Things should bend. So let's just test it out. Yeah, see that? That's a really natural bend. And you want to try it on all the different axes. Yeah, that feels like a really good shoulder. Okay, cool. But again, it's fun, kind of. I used to be really scared of rigging, but I'm hoping that by just talking you through this, you're starting to see how rigging doesn't have to be that scary. Each part of the body, when we did that auto rig, is given a color, and you see that the color corresponds to what part of the bones are being influenced. I'm only concerned about fixing the weights of what I plan on animating, and the things I'm not animating, I'm not going to fix the weights because, time is limited. So with this part, sorry, car went by. With this part, I'm going to look at the next thing I want to rig, which is the legs. These legs actually look like they have a pretty good weight distribution, but I think the shoulders are still a little weird. So let's go to the other shoulder here. It's a leg. What is this? That's another leg. Where's my shoulder? There we go. Same idea. This shoulder got a little weird, so I'm going to grab my weight paintbrush, turn it back on to absolute, and then make sure visible only is turned off. And then I'm going to hold control to erase the influence inside the body of the joint control. Then we're going to click on our smoothing brush, and then I'll smooth out all of that, make a nice little gradient. Keep in mind, if you have the mode turned off where it says visible only, it's actually a lot heavier calculation. So if you have an older computer, laptop, or an older PC, you're going to want to keep visible on, just because you'll crash your computer with how many things it's trying to paint. It's like, it's not just painting what you're seeing. It's trying to paint weight influence through the model. So if your model is super complicated and you have lots of layers and lots of polygons stacked on each other, it has to actually think about all of that geometry. I feel comfortable doing that calculation because I'm rocking a really powerful computer here. We have a 3090 in here for my GPU. We got like 36 cores of visual RAM. We have a massive threaded AMD Threadripper processor. It's just, we got lots of stuff that will support the number crunching. But if you don't, I didn't start off with this stuff. I started off with a really crappy computer. My iPhone is stronger graphically than the first computer I learned how to design on. So I know for a fact that you can do a lot with a little. And it's a myth if you think you need the best computer to get started. That's crap. It's not true. You can start off with whatever you have. If you're even able to see the stream right now, that means you probably have internet access and some kind of device that can hold video. You already have a lot more than you know. Okay, so those arms are rigged, I think. So let's jump out of rigging context and back into standard. And I want to just, actually, no, keep it in rigging in case we're not done. I'm going to go through each bone and make sure that they bend properly. So I'm going to grab this bone here. Let's take a look at the back legs, frog legs, see how's that looking. That actually looks pretty good. That's just the auto rigging. And again, the reason why this one looks so good for auto rigging is when this character was modeled, it kept the arms away from each other. It kept key areas away from itself, so that when the auto rigging is going through, it doesn't get confused. It's not trying to rig a leg together that doesn't need to be together. This is looking really great though. I'm actually really happy with the auto rigging that's coming out of here. Cool. All right, super happy with that. I'm gonna save my work because we're at a good spot to save. Hello, Alicia, welcome. Welcome. We got a question from Buna, says it's 3 times easier than Blender. That's why I love Cinema 4D. Yeah, that's the truth. Blender is harder than Cinema 4D, but it's just as powerful nowadays. So if you want the free option, you'll have to work harder, because you'll have to do 5 steps to do something that Cinema 4D does in 1 step. But it's at the cost of free. It's like, since I do all this 3D stuff professionally, it's worth it to me to pay the money for Cinema 4D monthly, because I use it daily. I mean, you see the streams. I'm using this thing for years, every single day. And then, clients and personal projects and NFTs that I make through this tool can justify the payment. But when you're just trying to learn and you're just getting started with 3D, it's honestly not worth it. It's worth working harder on a free program like Blender while you're getting started. Okay, so we've rigged the whole frog. Let me just take a look at the frog spine. That's the only bones I haven't really played with. I'm curious if the spine came out great, or if it's a troubled spine. All right, so let's look at lumbar, the lumbar bone here. That's actually pretty good. It's a pretty good. Yeah, it's got a little bit of. Well, we can definitely make the frog twerk if we needed to. If we set the character into IK, we'll be able to have the frog twerking on the mushroom. It's an important detail. See, what bone is this? Oh, these are hips. Okay, cool. So the hips are separated. Okay, great. Yeah, so it looks like everything is rigged pretty nicely. Yeah, I'm just testing out the movements. Yeah, look at this frog twerk. There you go. It's a twerking frog. This is why you came here today. This is why we're here. It was for a frog twerk. All that work just to get the frog to twerk. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the frog into an inverse kinematics rig so that all I have to do is move and animate the hips of the frog, and it will animate everything else for us. It will animate the arms. Basically, I want the feet to stay planted onto the mushroom at all times, but I want the rest of the upper body to be able to move independently, so that as the mushroom is dancing left and right, I want it so that I'm going to have the frog's center of gravity trying to compensate for the motion of the mushroom underneath it. So by setting up the character, it's all rigged. What we'll be doing is setting all of the arms into inverse kinematics. We'll attach the feet to the top of the mushroom, and then we can freely rotate and animate the upper body, and the hands and feet should all stay locked onto the surface of the mushroom. At least that's the plan. I don't know how possible this is. Oh, you see the mesh looks so clean? Thank you. I found it online. I found this mesh online. I did not rig this frog, but they did. Whoever modeled it knows what they're doing. What we haven't done yet is I'm also going to be rigging the bottom of we're going to do facial rigging on the frog. I'm not going to have it open its mouth, but I am going to try to program it so that, you know how frogs do that thing where the bottom of their throat gets like into a ball and it's like, you know what I mean? Where it's like a ball. I want to do that. And I'm going to try to do it with a blend shape. I haven't tried bringing a blend shape into LiDAR yet. So I'm curious if that data is going to behave any differently than the regular FBX data. So we'll find out. Okay, let's get the legs into IK. So I'm going to find out my leg is here. That's the hip. Where should we control the body from? So let's say we go from hip to that. Wait, or do we set? I think we do each leg independently. So let me grab this as my first leg, first, last, and then we'll go to our character tags. I'm going to switch the layout back to our new standard. And we're going to go to character. I'm going to set inverse K, create IK chain. So I think that means, I don't know if this is going to work. Let's just take a look. I should be able to move the hip and the foot should stay in place now. I don't know. Oh yeah, cool. So you see how now the foot, ignore all the other parts of the body, just look at the right leg. Now you see that if I move the hips, the right leg will stay planted onto the mushroom, which is what I want. I haven't rigged any other parts yet, or haven't done inverse rigs, but I love inverse kinematics rigs because it allows you the ability to twerk your characters and keep them dynamic. All right, let's do the same thing to the other leg. So I'm going to grab left leg to the left end and then go to character, create IK chain. So now we have two legs set in IK, which means we can move the hips and the legs will definitely twerk properly. Look at that. See how we get all the free bending of the frog legs on the knees? We get nice bending on the ankles. All of that is for free because we have we set it up as an inverse kinematics rig. And then, of course, you can animate this to get the frog to leap. So you could be like, yeah. So there we go. So that's how we would rig the legs of the frog. We'll do the same thing for the other parts of the body. So I'm going to go to the other arm. Looks like it's from it's from 11 to bone 14. And we'll go to character and create IK chain. And let's do the last arm. That's bone 111 to bone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we'll go to character, create IK chain. Now, our whole character, all of the arms and legs are in inverse kinematics, which means we can now move just the hips. Oops, not the hips, just the body, and all the arms and legs are going to move properly. So this is really cool because that lets you create little performances. Now, things to note is IK chains can only go so far. So if I really go very extreme with the motion, it's going to break. You see like polygons shooting out of the mouth and stuff. I don't really want to fix that. because it'll take me more than I can do in this live stream to fix some of these things. But since I'm just thinking of having the character just do little motions like this and that, I don't think people are going to notice the problem as much. In theory, they might. So whatever. We're just having fun. All right. So next thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to now move the frog rig under the last bone of the mushroom so that they become parented together. Because right now, if I hit the play button, the mushroom moves independently of the frog, and I want their motions to be tidally locked together. That one influences the other. So here's how we do that. First off, we're going to save our work because rigging can crash stuff and you'll be sad face. So it's saved. All right, now we're going to grab the frog. And I'm going to make the frog a child of bone 40. Bone 40 is the very top of the mushroom in here. It's this little green point. That is the top bone. So if I make my frog a child of bone 40, that should mean that the frog moves. Oh, goodness. That looks so disturbing. Oh, okay, I remember. I also have to, all of those bones, I forgot, need to be rigged to the top of it as well. Otherwise, it looks like we're murdering puppet frog. Yeah, that looks really disturbing. I'm gonna have some nightmares. I'm so sorry for this. No one expected that. I didn't expect this. It wasn't my intention to give you nightmares. These are supposed to be educational. So let me show you what happened. So what's happening here is the frog's body is properly moving with the top of the it is properly. I'll hit play. It is properly moving with the top of the mushroom like we asked it. But what I did not tell it to do is I didn't tell it to move its feet with the mushroom head. So the feet are trying to stay put, but the bones can't actually support that. So what we can do to fix that is move all 4 of the bones of the feet. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is it 4 of them? Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me make sure these are all the feet. Okay, that's just the 2 feet. Where's all 4 feet? Is this all? Okay, there we go. So we have to move all 4 bones of the feet as a child of object 40 as well. Now the whole frog will move with the mushroom, which is a huge step. So the last step is to counter animate the body's rotation of the frog and center of gravity to justify the movement that we're seeing on the mushroom. So I almost want to make it look like maybe the frog is what's moving the pretty mushroom. Again, I'm going to have my partner Keenan. She's going to illustrate a really cool design onto the mushroom. We'll try to get it to look pretty photorealistic. Right now, I'm just worrying about geometry, rigging, and animation. But we also still need to do UV unwrapping. We still need to paint this. We still need to light it. We still might want to bake lights. We still want to add particles. Oh, it's a lot. So for now, we're just worrying about geometry and rigging, which are hard, but they're fun. Okay, so what do we need to do? We got the feet there. So I'm just going to strategically grab each foot now and just manually push each foot onto the surface of the mushroom, so they all kind of, for the most part, stay put. I'm not going to go too crazy with it, but I just want them to be close enough where it's like, oh yeah, it's standing in there. Where at a glance, you'll think it is attached to the thing. So I'm just moving the feet. And let's just test that motion out. Hit the play button. Yeah, it looks like it's on it, right? Yeah. So now what I want to do that kind of helps make it look a lot better than just some like dummy attached to it, like a dumb toy, is by changing the center of gravity of the character in response to the motion of that thing is going to be everything. So in this case, all we really need to rotate is our hips or our spine 1. Spine 1 controls a lot of our rig now. So if we just rotate our spine 1 as the mushroom rotates, like counter rotate it, we'll create the illusion of like life. So I'm going to set auto key and turn that on so that we're now recording values. And let's say maybe what triggers the character to go to the side here is the spine 1 rotates this far. And we'll set a key right there. Oh, actually, I need to set a value for the key rotating. It didn't start it, actually. Sometimes when you turn on auto key, it doesn't key the first time. So I recommend you grab your control, you go to the coordinates, and with the coordinates selected, I just turn on all the values of the position. Or sorry, we're worrying about rotation right now. So I'm going to set a value for all of the rotations. And then over time, counter animate those rotations. You can turn on auto key, and now we get you get some extra motion in there. There we go. So now it almost looks like we get a little bit of a bounce out of that frog from the head movement kind of being delayed. And we're going to get that loop back there. I'm going to turn off wireframe for a moment. Look at that. So now we get all that extra life out of the frog, and it looks like the frog's kind of trying to adjust its center of gravity in response to the motion. So if you want the animation more natural, duplicate the mushroom and offset it, and the child and the frog to it. If you want the animation more natural, duplicate the mushroom and offset it, and the child of the frog to it. Are you talking about within the keyframes, like offsetting the keyframes in here? So right now it is kind of robotic, like, it starts and stops in pretty much the same way. But are you saying like offset the values in here so that the loop isn't as detectable? Could push these over here a bit. The other trick I have to make something look a little bit more organic when it's like this kind of weird floppy motion is I grab all of my curves, all of my motion curves, and I just add a little bit of speed ramping to them, basically changing them into like more like waves. And this add, oh well, now it looks like it's like a springy. That's kind of fun. Unintended, but a little too springy. I'm going to make it a little bit less springy. But yeah, just kind of doing the overshoots with the curves can help add a lot of secondary animation to all your keyframes, which can be pretty fun and pretty useful. I'm also going to adjust the height of the frog at some points in time. So we're going to go to the spine 1 coordinate, and now I'm going to set a value for its height, which is just the X, Y, and Z positional values. So I'm going to set some keyframes. Maybe right around here, the Y value goes up or down. Maybe I'll have it go up a little bit. And then maybe we'll have it go down for a second, like it's trying to catch its gravity. Trying to catch itself, and then it maybe pops back up a little bit. And then we want to make sure it loops properly. Turn off displaying in animation. Let's do filter geometry only on playback, just so I can see it without all the lines and the bones bothering me. Okay, that looks kind of cool. Let's go larger screen here. Look at that. So look at all that animation. It looks like a lot more time was spent on that, right? Just by adding an inverse kinematics rig to all the bones and just adjusting that little thing like the center of gravity while it's moving is super helpful at creating life into your performances. When you do like another thing that when I was working at DreamWorks, something to think of is there's not like one giant world that holds the whole movie in it, but rather a bunch of different props and scenes and environments that keep getting recreated, like almost like a film set. When you watch a movie where a lot of it was shot on a green screen or a lot of it was shot on like actual physical sets, those sets are like the disjoint moments. And so you can imagine this as one moment in a short film of a frog struggling to stay on a mushroom in a storm or something. And like this could be a single shot. You could have a different shot that would be a close up of the frog's hands trying to like grip onto things. But in that shot, we care more about the rigs of the fingers. So you would do a separate rig for just that shot for time. Because sometimes you don't need the most complicated rig in every situation. Just some ideas for thought there. I'm going to go up here and do some more little secondary animations now, some little subtle things that aren't on the inverse rigs, but rather on the regular IK rig. So let's find the position of the spine. There it is. Oh no, it's the arm. What am I talking about? Where's the spine? Oh, this is the neck. Or no, 10 is the neck. What is this? Oh, no, I don't know what that is. All right, I'm going to leave that alone. That's an arm. Where's the neck? Oh, there's the neck. Oh, there we go. So I'm also going to add a little bit of neck rotation. Just a little bit. Just to add, again, more secondary animation. Always makes stuff look more like alive, um, more believable, and interesting to people. So yeah, see, the frog agrees. Yep. Oh, yeah, the frog's like, yes. Adding more secondary animation always makes people think that the thing is more alive. So, as it turns out, um, in reality, we get a lot of motion for free. Very rarely do you see anybody in life that's perfectly still. Even in meditation, you're still breathing. Like every a lot of physical motions that humans have are are tidally locked to motion. They're part of the same equation. So the same applies same applies for animation. Okay, so I just added some random neck movements, and just to kind of give it a little bit more life, almost like its head is trying to focus on something different than its body is, and just little tiniest details like that are they're not like always specifically noticed by people, because that's not the goal. The goal is just to have it feel like the whole thing is more real. It's more embedded. It's more part of the bigger picture. I really like this frog. I'm really happy with it. I'm getting some weird stretching around the neck, so now I'm kind of interested in cleaning up that rig around the neck. So let's just save our work real quick, and I'm going to switch it back into the rigging context, and I am going to just try to clean this up. So the reason why the neck is breaking, you can see it, the neck is trying to do a 90-degree turn. See how it's like a bright bright pink value, and then it goes to black? That's what's going to create those really sharp transitions, which we wouldn't really want for an organic, like creature, amphibian. We wouldn't really want that for an amphibious creature. So what we'll do is we'll fix it. You grab the weight paintbrush, switch it to smoothing, and then just click a couple of times to smooth that out. Create a nice little soft gradient transition between the two parts. And already that kind of fixed a lot of the problems. Let's play it back. Looking for other areas. Also display my lines again. I usually find that it's easiest to spot the broken effects when you're in line mode. You can see all the polygons and see which ones are not responding to your rigging properly. Okay, that feels a lot better. Let's go ahead and play that. Yeah, the neck feels a lot better on the left side. Now let's try the other side. Oh, the other side is struggling too with that neck turn. So I'm going to go to the part where I see it really breaking. And same idea, grab that weight paintbrush, set it to smoothing, set it to not just the visible only, so we're able to actually draw through the model and influence the weight distributions through the model. Clicking a lot of different times. You can change the strength of these brushes so that they have more or less influence. I generally speaking like to keep them very, very soft, because rigging is one of those delicate things where I try not to hit it with a hammer. It's more like a task that is better with like a toothpick to go at it. If you had to compare it to like a hammer solves a certain set of problems, but I wouldn't want to use the hammer equivalent when fixing a rig. I want to use like a very gentle, soft thing. Okay, I'm getting a little bit of tearing right around here on the back of the eye. Not exactly sure. I don't see the influence coming through here. I'll keep trying to soften it. It looks like it's not getting smoother on this side. So sometimes I turn off and on these settings, like I'm going to turn off projection. Oh no, okay, that's just going to smooth out the whole model. I don't really want to do that. So let me turn off auto normalize. Okay, there we go. Looks like that's somehow fixing it. Not sure why, but it does appear to be fixing. Usually it fixes in one dimension and breaks in another. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's jump back into standard and display our lines and take it off of our weight paint. Cool. So that looks like the neck has a lot more natural motion as it's moving on the in the thing here. Amazing. Cool. So now what I'm gonna do is save out that animation data and just test to see if this very plain FBX file, if this data works across platform. So let's turn off auto keying and pause the sim and save it. And then I'm going to look at all the data in here. I'm gonna get rid of my figure. I don't need my figure. This is a person. This is about how large I imagine someone being to this experience. I'm gonna use LiDAR to track this in. I did not model this frog. I found this frog on a free asset. I am gonna be painting it differently. I want it to look more like a fantasy creature. I'll probably have it be painted like black with like glowing neon scales and all over its body, and maybe glowing palms and a glowing belly. I think will look really cool, and maybe yellow eyes. So black, yellow, and blue. I think will look pretty cool on this thing. So we'll paint it differently, and the mushroom is also going to have a really crazy pattern. Now I'm just using the plainest of plain geometry just to test it out. And then I put a figure here to show you the scale. It's about how large I imagine the AR asset being when you hold your device up to it. Where do you get the human model? It's a great idea to use it for scale. Yeah, so with I think with Cinema 4D and Blender, they come with a lot of pre-made models like this. This one is it's like this model comes with Cinema 4D and it's within your asset panel. When you load up Cinema 4D, if you click on your objects, they have an object in here called figure, and that figure can be, you can just grab it and throw it in. I always do this when you're designing for VR and AR because otherwise it's kind of hard to know like how big is this in real life if you know if you're not actually standing in front of this thing. Because now I can see it in real life. I think this will be plenty of space. And actually, even seeing it this way, I think I might want to smooth out the mushroom a bit more now that I'm seeing it, because it looks like it's a little blocky. But before I do that, I'm just going to bring this whole object, including the reference human, I'm going to bring this into AR and just make sure that it's even working. Because usually I get some troubles with IK stuff, but we'll see. Maybe we'll have some luck. So I'm going to go to File, Export. I'm going to choose an FBX file. I'm going to leave all my settings, but you can zoom in here if you want to take a screenshot of them, or you can just take a look on YouTube. These are the settings I've been using as of lately for successful FBX files in AR. And then we'll go ahead and hit OK. I'm going to save this into Frog. I'm going to call this Frog Test 1. Frog underscore test underscore 1. We'll make a new folder for animations. Just call it anim for animation. There's Frog Test 1. We'll save it in there. Then I'm going to pull up, promotional time. I'm going to be speaking at Adobe Max this year, so please join me in my session. The session number that I have is session 480. Please join it. It's free. It's on Adobe Max. It's going to be the 3D asset pipeline for augmented reality using all the Adobe tools only. It's a great thing. So there's my little promo. Thank you for tuning in. I'm going to keep going, but I just wanted to have my own little plug here. Okay, now we're back to Lens Studio. Lens Studio is an AR application that is built by Snapchat. It is designed to make AR effects, filters, lenses. And one thing that they have added recently is LiDAR support. I do want to use this for LiDAR, but for now I'm just going to test it with a generic animated object. I just want to see if my data even comes in here or if it breaks. I'm not sure yet. So we'll find out in about 15 seconds. So step 1, we open up the project file that has an animated object. There's a replace me thing. It's an FBX file. We want to replace it with colors. going to go to the resources. We're going to import our resources by hitting that plus sign, going to the from files. And then we navigate to our asset, my frog, anim, go to frog test 1, hit open, import. Takes a second to think about it. You'll see it complete in the folder to the left. You want to expand the F folder and then grab the P folder. P, I think, stands for prefab, and we're going to drag that prefab underneath the, or just right on top of the replace me object. And if you're not seeing anything here, we're going to need to switch the camera around. So I'm going to go maybe grab some footage and then choose stairs. I'm going to choose tree. No, I'm going to choose world and then switch it from horizontal view into iPhone 10 view. And then I'm also going to turn off the user interface of the snap interface. So it's just the thing. So this is an interactive window. I can move stuff around here. And okay, it looks like everything's combined together right now. See if I can move. I'm going to try and move these independently. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of the red panda because it's distracting and not what I want. So red panda, be gone. Poof. Oh, look at that. Our frog's in there. And so is all of our animation. I think it worked. Let me get it a little bit closer. Can I spin this around? If we jump into our scene view, should be able to grab this entire frog asset and rotate it along the y-axis. I guess I'll just rotate it. Let's do 180 degrees. 180. Oh, or multiply it by, maybe it's negative 180, minus 180. Okay, if that's not working, I'm just going to do it manually. Just grab the button, flip it around, back to our object view. Cool. I'm going to bring up my preview view and my scene view at the same time because I want to kind of work back and forth here. And we're going to get rid of the elephant. And I don't need to see my little test human figure, so I'm going to get rid of the figure somewhere. Goodbye. So we're just working on the frog asset. I'm going to scale this up with frog test. Okay, so it looks like some of the data came through. Actually, no, most of it's there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's most of the data. I think the arms look a little different. I'm not sure if I'm seeing the arms move the way I anticipated. You see what I mean? Where it's kind of like I don't see the legs bending. Yeah, I think the legs are not bending, which was something I really wanted to add. So I do have a fix for this. I just want to see if just dragging it in would work. But I do want the legs to animate. So looking at that by comparison, and this will work in AR, because at this point we can now drag on any world environment, and it's going to work, which is pretty sweet. But it looks like it lost some data, which I'm going to fix right now. I'm going to first delete this red panda because it's going to keep appearing every time I refresh. And I'm going to recenter my frog test in the center of the world scene so that we don't have to keep moving it. Switch the patio to the depth pass, go to the cactus world. Yeah, so it's close. It's close. I'm really happy for test 1. We got a lot of that data across. We got the wiggling of the mushroom in there, which is great, and we got the head rotation and the hip rotation. But what we did not get is the inverse rigs of all the legs of the frog. So let's go back and take a look at what I mean. You see how on here, when we hit play in Cinema 4D, the arms, actually, they don't really move around that much. I feel like there's just a little bit more allowance of motion in here. Turned it on so we can see the bones at the same time. You see how, like, or maybe I'm tripping out. Maybe it is moving enough. Okay, there's one way to test this. I'm going to animate an arm to do something specific. Okay, I'm going to have it do like this, or maybe I come off of the. How do I make the arm safely without breaking the rig? Okay, I'm going to grab its joint goal. I feel like this is bending a lot more than the other frog, or maybe it's just my eyes. Okay, well, what I usually do is you can open up a new Cinema 4D file, And I found that if you import your FBX file back into Cinema 4D, it sometimes converts all of your joints into PSR data, which stands for position, scale, rotational data. And that's really sweet because that data is preserved across different platforms and it's pretty honored. It doesn't degrade. So I'm going to grab the frog test as an FBX and import it in here and see if it's retaining that data. So we import the scene. It's going to change your textures around a little bit. Now it looks like it's made of more of a gloss. I'm going to hit play and see what happens. Okay, I actually can't tell if it's working. Yeah, this is kind of what I saw before. It's like the legs are kind of static. So it looks like the head and body are moving more than the imported one. Yeah, I think you're right. So it looks like it's not getting that IK rig data into here. So we need to find a way to get that data into here. So first off, I'm going to make the movement of the frog's waist more dramatic so that it really forces the legs to bend. So I'm going to set a keyframe, set auto keying on, and then go to the frog hips position. And I'm going to slide them to the side there. And then over here, I'm going to slide them to the side again so that we get a little bit more weight offset, like sliding happening. And we'll keep it kind of down here until it pops back up. So I'll keep that to the side. And then when it switches back, we want to make sure that we get back to the first keyframe comfortably. So let's move the slider there, set the end value to that, so that we get a nice loop. Okay, so now the legs bend a little bit more. You can kind of see the legs will bend in here. This time what I'm going to do is change the way we save this data. I'm going to do a technique called baking PSR. So I'm going to save everything. And what I do for this technique is get rid of stuff that we don't need in our scene, like this figure. I know it's the proper scale now, so I'm going to delete my figure. And what's this? Oh, that's the mushroom joint. Go ahead and keep that there. I'm going to grab all of my objects in the scene and go to frame 1. And in the animation context, there's a menu called function. We want to open up function. And there's an option in here called bake object. Click on bake object and jump into our bake options. We want to first turn off clean tracks. Sorry, turn off create copy because I don't want a copy of this data. I want to overwrite my existing data. And then the data that you want to include, you want to check it on. So we don't need to worry about scale. We don't change scale at all yet. I just worry about position and rotation. So with P and R set up, we hit OK. And that bakes data onto every keyframe. Now I'm going to go in to the frog rig and turn off the IK rigs. I'm turning off all the IK rigs because that data should be baked into our model without the IK rigs even there. So let's see, moment of truth. Are we getting the same bend without the IK rigs? Oh, we're getting a weird flipping thing happening. Oh yeah, we're getting a really weird flipping happening on the mushroom. Oh, you said save the project without baking first. You're right, I should have done that. Let me undo. Okay, there. So this is before the baking. You're right, I should save first. Let's go to save project. How about this? I'm not going to bake the mushroom movement. I'm only going to bake the frog movement. So I think the mushroom just broke when I did that. But if we grab just the frog, I think we'll be safe. So I'm going to grab just the frog. And then we'll go to File, Save Incremental. So that's making a new copy of the Cinema 4D file in case we screw up, in case we really mess up right here. So that looks good. And then now I'm going to bake it. So I'm going to grab all of the controls of the frog, go to our keyframes, then go to Function, go to Bake Objects. We want to uncheck Create Copy, uncheck Remove Tags. And I only want to bake the position and rotational data and hit OK. And then let's take a look. Did it work? Oh yeah, let me delete the IK tags now because I don't think we need them anymore. And then we'll hit the play button. Okay, that's actually looking good. I'm seeing that the legs are bending now, and that we are getting some good weight shifting. It looks like the frog is kind of throwing itself to the side. Yeah, that works for me. So the chances of this working now are much higher because we baked in the data that was breaking and we got rid of a complicated tag. Sometimes an IK tag is a weird bit of data. I think this also means we can now remove our goals of the feet. We don't need that data anymore either, so I'm going to get rid of it, trying to make the file size more simplified data. This, when you bake animation though, thing to think about is it's a destructive form of editing because we can't go back. That's why it was great that Buna had us save the project first before baking. Buna says there's another technique, select the frog mesh, then right click, select rigging, then click bake. That's sweet. He said there's another technique, select the frog mesh, then right click, select rigging. I did not know about that. Let me see, that's an option. So you said you grab the frog. I just want to see it myself. Right click, and then you clicked on, you said click on the frog mesh, then you said right click and select rigging. Rigging. New tag. I don't know of this way of doing it, but it sounds like it should work. What you're describing makes sense to me. I just don't see that option. Unless you maybe have to be in polygon mode or something. I'm not sure. But it looks like the data is working without the IK tag, which is my main goal. So now I'm going to save this FBX file again. So go File, Export, Save FBX. I'm going to leave all of this alone because it did work before. And I'm just going to save this into my animation folder. We'll call this frog test number 2. And we'll give it a save. Great. Then we'll jump back into Lens Studio. And we'll keep this frog in here for reference because that was our original frog. I'm going to import a new frog. So I'm going to go to Add New, hit that plus button from Files, go to frog test number 2, hit Open, hit Import, give it a couple seconds to think. Oh, it's in the right panel. I see what you mean. You have to show me that next time. And then we got our frog test 1 here. I'm going to go to frog test 2, bring in that prefab, and make it a child of our world object controller. And now we have both of our frogs in here. And let's flip this one around. So this one should have more data on the legs. It's kind of hard for me to see because it is dependent on how I'm rotating my scene around. It's hard for me to see. Can't rotate it around it. Maybe let me grab my world object and rotate it sideways this way so I can see back of the frogs more closely. They look really similar. I'm not sure if the data came through again. Yeah, it looks like looks the same. I don't see any difference in the way their in the way their legs are moving. I'm not sure why, because we did bake this. So, that is a curious one. When in doubt, I've also got another. I export this as a different file format known as a GLTF. But I was hoping to use this existing data as is without the compromise, but we might have to compromise. Let me go back into it. Yeah, because we definitely get the motion in here. So let me just try exporting it one more time. I'm going to select all my polygons or keyframes, sorry, and go to File, Export, FBX. I'm going to double check what's going on in here. I mean, that all looks great. I'm going to click Bake All Frames again and hit OK. I'm going to save this as animation test version 3. This one doesn't work, we'll try an FBX file. Or sorry, a GLTF. Right, so we got frog 1 failed, frog 2 failed, let's bring in frog number 3. Plus button, import from files, go to frog test number 3, hit OK, hit import. Oh, you said select PLA, set point level attributes. Bring this third one in. Okay, this one worked. Yeah, I see it's leg bending, I think. Oops. Let me slide it forward. Oh, I'm tripping out. It is not bending yet, is it? Okay, you're right. So you said check PLA when I export the, yeah, because it looks like the leg is not, it's not doing it yet. Yeah, the legs aren't bending. So let me go back to Cinema 4D, go to File, Export, FBX file, and you're saying check on PLA. So go to Tracks, turn on PLA to Vertex Cache and hit OK. Go into Animation folder, save this as version 4. I'll do version 5. I don't know if I ever did a 4th version. And then we'll bring this back into Lens Studio. It's getting messy. Got all these frogs, each one's a little different. Hit the plus button here, import from files, grab the 5, hit open. Oh, oh yeah, everything else is checked already. That looks good. We hit import. There it is, frog version 5. I'm gonna grab the prefab, bring it in as a child of the frog test number 1. And see, does it do it? That's weird. It's really not, it's not bringing that data. It says when you bake objects, select PLA. Oh, you mean during the baking process. Got it. Let's go back. Let's go to pre-bake. Okay, this was before the bake. When we still had, yeah, when we had leg movement. So that looks good. And then I'm gonna grab just the frog, all of its keyframes. Grab the frog, grab all of the keyframes, go to the beginning, we're gonna go to functions, and then choose bake object. Oh, I see what you mean. So you're saying turn on PLA in this spot. So you're saying bake that data in. So I'm gonna grab PLA, and then you said select just PLA. Oh, it said just PLA. Oh, gotcha. So let's turn off position rotation. So now it's just PLA like that. Does that look good to you? Okay, cool. So we're just gonna bake that PLA data, and we'll hit OK. And so it's baked a bunch of stuff. I'm going to delete all of my IK tags and make sure it works. Looks like it broke. Looks like it really broke. Looks like it's not following the bones at all. Weird. Let me keep the IK tags. Oh, it still doesn't like that either. Okay, I don't know why, but I think that broke it. So I might go back a couple steps. Oh, you said deselect. Okay, so I'm deselecting, but I don't want to bake the, I don't want to bake this down too though. I wanted to keep that separate because it was causing problems, but maybe this will fix it. So I deselected everything, and then we're going to go to functions. Oh, if you deselect everything, you can't bake it. I have to select keyframes. Function, weird. But the bake objects is no longer available because it's selecting them. Deselect objects after baking. Deselect objects after baking. It's there. So I grab the frog and I want to bake it. So I click on function, bake object. I'm going to bake just the PLA like you're saying. Hit OK. Then I'm going to deselect. And now it should just be the frog data, right? Okay, cool. So the legs are bending. That's good. I wonder, can we now get rid of the bones? Because it looks like the bones are irrelevant now, huh? What happens if we get rid of the IK tags at least? that starts to break it. So let me keep the IK tags. I don't know if this is working. Or if it is, maybe we have to like lift the body off of the ground a little bit. So I might grab the Y value and just slide it up. Oh crap, it won't let me do that. I don't know if this was the proper solution. Think it's worse. I think it's worse now. My frog looks like a horse. You might have turned my frog into a horse here. Ooh, I can't go back. Huh. Dang. I guess we hit a wall here. I don't know how to get this data out of here. vCreate says, are the leg bones connected to the spine? Is it all one armature? Oh, it's not. Good eye. It is not. They're not connected properly. I think that's exactly the problem, isn't it? I forgot about that. Sorry. I forgot that bones all need to be one chain, all connected. Otherwise, I should expect problems. Yeah, the legs aren't combined to the hip, and neither are the arms. They're just close proxies. Very good eye. I think that's why it didn't work. Thank you, vCreates. You rock. I think what I had them parented to was the goals instead. Like I have them parented to these null objects, but these null objects are detached from the bones. Is there a way that I could detach them right now, or do I have to reanimate them? So I'm thinking I might have to reanimate. Why did I do that? That's a bummer. I always struggled with that. Yeah, everything needs to be connected. Yeah, this is horse frog. Just keep lifting on that y-axis, it gets more disturbing. This is the flying goat goose frog. And this is its cousin, kite bat frog. And then this one is the manta ray frog shrimp. And this one is the koala bear sloth frog. Cloth. Koala sloth. Cloth. It's the cloth frog. Can you duplicate the armature and copy and paste the keys? I don't think I can. Actually, it was actually really friendly to animate, to be honest. So that actually might not be an issue. I just forgot how to connect the bones manually, or unless is it just dragging the hierarchy under itself, or will that break the bones? Let's find out. I'm gonna grab the. Dang, you're so right. You caught the issue right away. For those of you that are watching here on YouTube, the reason why the legs are not animating properly is that they're not actually connected. The fact that this horse frog can detach its lower half from the mid half is the problem. So I need to actually fix this by doing it again a different time, later, because I had to pick up some groceries from outside. Getting a text from a grocery delivery. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Hopefully you learned a little bit. We at least got the bottom of it rigged properly. And this animation would work if we stayed entirely inside of Cinema 4D. It just will break heavily if we bring this into AR as we speak. As in, we can't get that animation of the legs bending if they're not attached to one armature. Duplicate the fix. Said duplicate and fix the armature I meant. Send me the file. I can export the FBX for you, but I don't know if S21 can open S25 file. Oh, yeah, I don't think that would work. Yeah, we'll continue this live stream. It's good to share the problems. So I'll warn people that this is a flawed way of rigging. The armature needs to be one bone system. Otherwise, it doesn't understand that those legs should move in a different program with the rest of it because they're not connected. So thank you so much for catching that, vCreates. I will I'll solve this some different time. Yeah, we'll need to solve it for the future. But for now, I'll end it. So thank you so much for the help, and I'll see you all in the next live stream. This is saved onto YouTube right now, so I'm not going to save it here on Instagram. We're just going to save it over on YouTube. And thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the creative journey. Ibrahim Buna, Veronica Baru, and Vanessa Dutra, thank you. Really appreciate you being here. And I'll see you all in the next stream. Bye-bye. Cool. I'll go ahead and end it here on YouTube as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. At least we got a cool frog animation, but we need to make sure the bones are actually connected next time.